Okay, everyone, here are some quick thoughts on some of these new characters that they've been adding the last 2 months. So I missed out on making a video last month, so I might as well talk about it right now. So let's just start. Let's just get right into it. So first you have Adankelmo. Uh, yes, yeah, that's a pretty funny name. Everybody keeps saying Adankelmo, but the thing about this character is that there really isn't a whole lot to say. If you look at her kit, it's pretty much just like standard mage stuff. You got some single target attacks here. You have a mass resist as just like a side support option, and you have a couple AOE's. Her 3C is also an AOE, and I don't think there's a whole lot else other than that. So the main gimmick that Adankelmo provides is this gate that she creates in her talent. So basically, if you've ever played, like StarCraft, like Nidus Canal, like you can create two gates and you can tunnel characters from one end to the other. And Adenkelmo herself can actually act again when she passes through her own gate. So she has pretty large range. She has 30% damage, which is pretty standard. Very high. Just a standard high damage increase that you get on DPSs. But aside from that, like I said, the main unique thing you get here is the gate function. And when she creates the gate, she actually gets the unit range +2, so she does have 4 range, like a lot of the new mages that they've been adding. So when it comes to this gate, you can create one of them within 4 blocks of herself, and then the second gate you get to create within 2 blocks. So if you run her ahead of your team, what she can do is create one 4 blocks ahead of her and then the other one 2 blocks behind her, and then you can kind of transfer people 6 entire blocks. Now remember that unless your unit has an act again of some kind, like chivalry or strike or something, they cannot act again after transferring through the gate. Only Adankelmo does that by herself. And there's also other ways of doing it. I'm not sure if Deedlit works with it actually. Like I don't know if Deedlit transfers to a gate and it's in a danger zone, if it activates. I'm gonna have to check that later. But yeah, like I said, aside from that, Adankelmo is very straightforward. Just single target AOE's, magic damage. Not a whole lot to say here, but she is very good. I mean, just because she's easy to understand doesn't mean she's not good. I would say she's actually very good. I mean, this gate ability is just really, really powerful. I don't think I really need to expand on that too much. I mean, if you think about any kind of strategy game or any SRPG, being able to transfer units and being able to boost any unit's movement is always very valuable. So, Adankelmo, definitely worth getting. Aside from that, I guess it's worth noting, Archon of the Moon is one of her bonds, and so is Lost Ham, or Rostam. They ended up calling him Lost Ham on the global server. Which is kind of annoying. Like Archon of the Moon, I think is a unit that very few people have, and Rostam, I know a lot of people are pulling for Rostam, so at least a lot of people have him. But yeah, Archon, if you are missing him, you're gonna want to get him at some point if you want to max out Adankelmo's potential. Aside from that, not much else to say here. Strategic Masters faction is like they keep trying to boost the Strategic Masters faction, but they need to do something about their faction buffers if they really want the Strategist faction to be better. Legend is always good. Mythical has some problems with their faction buffers as well. They're not as good anymore. Gizarov is very rarely seen. Old Landius is okay, but it's becoming harder and harder to use him because there's just not as many flyers and cavalry running around that really care about his tiles. So that is one problem with Mythical. Yeah, not much else to say here. So let's talk about Lightbringer. Lightbringer, it's basically it's older Elma. She, they keep creating these older versions of the Tensei characters, which is fine. So a lot of people kind of pointed out how Elma had a sword class in her original release, but I guess they were planning ahead at that point, and they decided to make her basically like a paladin kind of character. So she is a tank, 25% damage reduction, standard on tanks nowadays. She is also an intelligence-based tank. She attacks with intelligence, which is the first time we've gotten one since Valkyrie Freya. And Valkyrie Freya, nobody actually built intelligence on her. So Lightbringer is kind of interesting because it's clear what they were trying to do here is to make kind of a mixed DPS tank kind of character. Well, okay, so let's just rewind a bit and let's talk about the talent first, because aside from the damage taken, you have this Mirror Shine that you get in her talent, which is basically, buff dispelling resistance. So she can create stacks of Mirror Shine for herself every time she ends her turn, and she gets them the other ways as well. And this is basically these have the priority when you get roared or you get sword soul. So she is so this is actually quite powerful. I don't think I really need to explain that. There's so many tank busters nowadays that have some kind of sword soul variant, so she can at least eat one of those and not lose too many buffs or possibly block the entire thing. But the problem here I see is that first you have this soldier boost, right? So which is 30% HP, 30% attack, 25% defense, and 25% magic defense. Now, like I said a minute ago, it seems what they were trying to do was create a half DPS tank, which we've had in the past. I mean, you can say Landius is kind of like that. Landius can do a fair bit of damage. Hilda can do okay damage if you build her for it, and even Christiane can do some okay damage output. But none of them, well, Landius does, but most of them don't really have like an offensive soldier spread like this, where you have 30% attack. So it's kind of interesting because they did give her a number of attack skills, as you'll see here. They gave her Discipline, which is, the standard kind of like the Valkyrie or Paladin style attack where you 2-range attack. And she also has this unique skill, this Holy Shield attack, which is also a ranged attack. And for every dead ally she has, this attack gets stronger, up to 45%. So this is kind of interesting because a lot of times when you play tank push, one of your biggest concerns is assassins, right? And she does have an aura, like she has this critical reduction aura, and she increases defense on holy allies. But nowadays, I'm not sure that's quite enough to save the majority of. It's certainly not enough to save your squishy allies. It might be able to save a lot of the tougher allies. If you avoid the crit, obviously, otherwise it's not really doing anything, right? But even if you lose your allies, if you get to a late game kind of thing where all you have left is Lightbringer, you can at least use this shield attack and do some pretty good damage from her. She doesn't have a damage increasing talent, but she does hit on intelligence. She does have plus 45 damage from this, and she actually has kind of, I don't want to say she has offensive troop choices. She kind of has a mix of defensive and some sort of offensive troop choices. So if you look at right here, like she has Phalanx, Guardian Infantry, State Guards, Empress Personal Guards, and Treant Guardian. So out of these, obviously Fighting Monk is the one that is like that does magic damage. Treant Guardian has really high attack. State Guards are also quite good at dealing damage, and Zealots are decent, but the problem with Zealots is that once they dip below 80% life, they just become total garbage. So she does have a kind of half defensive troop and half offensive troops as her choices here. Defensively, the one big gap you'll see here is that she doesn't have a cavalry choice. She doesn't have Royal Calves. She doesn't have Golden Knights, but she wouldn't be able to use them anyway because she is a holy and infantry unit. So I mean that is also another downside, because I think the majority of people are going to be running her on holy, and that is obviously a problem if when you're facing down any kind of Judge Talisman. Infantry is still an option. There's enough cows to make infantry kind of something you should be hesitant to run as, but I mean, Christiane does okay. You just have to remember to pick ban accordingly depending on which class you choose, and I think she can be run pretty effectively on either one. So let's talk about this 3C real quick, because there's a couple of interesting things about this. First, immunity displacement is okay. Like it's not like it's just a nice bonus. I'm not crazy about this, but really the most valuable thing here is the immunity to curse wounding and heal reverse. Obviously, this means that you can equip her with a Blood Pact, and she will be immune to all forms of healing prevention, which is quite valuable. It means she can face down both Elwyn and Wet Ham. And in fact, she can also face down the... actually, never mind. Yeah, so basically, she is good at facing down both Wet Ham and Elwyn, because she will prevent both of them from just like stealing all her buffs, and she will prevent the most devastating debuff that they do on their strongest attack. Of course, Elwyn will still passive block her, but it's not like that's not the worst thing that can happen. But again, like the big issue here is that she is not as tanky as Hilda, and I would say she isn't even as tanky as Christiane because of the way you're probably going to be building her, because you're probably going to build her with HP, intelligence, and you're going to have to choose between defense and magic defense. She does add some of her intelligence to defense and magic defense, and that helps a little bit. But I'm guessing that at the end she is not going to be as tanky as Hilda can be. But overall, like she is quite good. There's not. She is. I'd say I would compare her out of all the tanks we have right now. She's most comparable to Christiane, because just like Christiane, she does faction buff and guard up at the same time. Now her faction buff isn't like a quote unquote real faction buff. She buffs holy units with the standard like attack defense plus 20 and magic defense plus 30. She doesn't add a special effect on top, so that can be a downside. If you really needed it for like, I don't know, if you run like Holy Florentia or something and you really wanted to buff with her, then she wouldn't be able to work with her. But the advantage, of course, that she has over Christiane is that because she is avoiding all these buff dispels, she can kind of stick with a 2-range guard more safely and doesn't have to worry about it as much, even if you get passive blocked by Elwyn or something. But as I mentioned a minute ago, her biggest flaw is that if you run her as Holy, she is going to have a lot of trouble anytime you run into someone with Judge Talisman. That can be very dangerous. But overall, this like I said, very comparable to Christiane, and I think she would be like just about as good as Christiane. Same amount of damage taken, same strength of revive. Just has a different gimmick in terms of like Christiane has her flowers and her AOE reduction from on her allies. Instead, Lightbringer can prevent buff dispels, which is very powerful. But her support for her support in terms of aura is weaker than Christiane. She just reduces critical hits by 20% and gives 10% defense to holy allies, which is a nice bonus. But honestly, like if you're running a lot of holies, you're obviously very vulnerable to people running Judge Talisman, and that completely negates this defense bonus and then some. But the other thing is that, but like I said earlier, is that she can DPS sorta on top of all that, which is something most of the other tanks can't really do. And she does have 2-range attacks. She has Discipline and the Holy Shield attack. And up to this point, the only units that had a 2-range that really had a 2-range attack are I think it was Layden. Like Layden got some 2-range attack with his SP. And the interesting thing here is that if you run Blood Pact, she will be immune to all Curse of Wounding, Heal Reversal, and Heal Block. So that remains that you're one of the big flaws you have here is that she will be vulnerable to Moby Down. But they thought ahead and actually provided mass resist in her kit. And because she is resistant to buffs dispels, she doesn't need to be as worried about somebody dispelling her and then breaking her legs. She can just put this up and then be mostly confident that it can stay most of the time. Which is really nice to have. I mean, she also has Strengthen if you really, really need it, which is another nice bonus. Yep. That seems to be about it. Yeah, just another very strong tank to add to the game, right? And she is in Protagonist, Glory, Mythical. It's really nice for Mythical to get a solid tank here, because up until this point, their only real option was like Juggler or something. And So if you really want to build a mythical box, she might be really nice to have around. And of course, she kind of fits into any box as long as you like running holy units, right? If Lucretia is holy, Sherry is holy. People run Holy Light of Genesis all the time. A lot of mages can be run as holy. Yes, almost every healer can be run as holy. So this holy faction buff, such as it were, is actually very powerful and actually adds a very interesting dynamic to how you can build your box. As far as like glory and protagonist go, obviously protagonist getting another really high quality tank is really nice, especially coming out of me. The problem is that like Layden wasn't really that big of an upgrade, and I don't think it was enough of an upgrade to make him that relevant in PvP. So the most relevant tank that protagonist had was still only Landius, so Lightbringer really helps a lot with that. Glory, they already have Layden and Grenier, and again, Layden has some problems, and so does Grenier. Lightbringer kind of brings a lot to the table compared to those two because she has the 50% revive that a lot of tanks now have, and she's just very strong in general. Like I said, the only downside I would say to her is that she doesn't have a whole lot of team support. Her auras are kind of weak, and she doesn't seem to be as tanky as some of the other tanks we've had just because of her soldier spread and the way you're going to be building her. But that's not really a bad thing, to have kind of an aggressive tank that can also DPS. I think that's actually quite valuable, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how people fit Lightbringer into their boxes, because I kind of wonder if some people are also going to just kind of just in case you have to run double tank, you can kind of run Lightbringer as an off DPS and try to use her that way. And remember, because she is using hammers, being a holy unit or an infantry unit, and she's intelligence based, you can actually stick Gift of Eternal Life on her, and she will also be healing people a little bit, which is another nice form of support. So yeah, definitely really valuable. Both Adankelmo and Lightbringer are worth getting, I would say. So yeah. So on during that patch, which is the Embers of Hope patch, they also added Caroline and Tiaris's exclusives. Caroline's exclusive is very powerful. Talent span +1. Like I think that's kind of self-explanatory for how strong that is. Like one of the problems with Caroline was that she only had 5 move, and you get 2 more with the Mechanical Knights, and you could get +2 move via her turbocharge, and then you can kind of range attack with her AoEs. But sometimes like Caroline's function was essentially to be kind of an anti-breeze character, and her problem is that if her range isn't long enough to counter other breeze characters, then it kind of defeats the purpose of her existence. However, with a talent span +1 on this talent, and increasing the duration that this mobility down lasts, is very, very powerful. So I think it actually really helps her do her anti-breeze kind of function. And this part, the critical hit rate and damage dealt, it's just a nice bonus. Caroline is kind of a half tanky, kind of a tanky DPS sort of character that is used to disrupt the enemy. So any extra damage is always nice. I've always felt that the damage coming out of Caroline is just a bonus. Her main function is to disrupt the enemy team and just annoy them with all these Moby Downs, and I feel like, and I think it's already happening, the Caroline is already starting to see a lot more use thanks to this helm. So yeah, like very powerful exclusive. So people who rolled for Caroline, you can rejoice that, even though she wasn't used a lot before, I think, this helm I think is going to help her out a lot. So Tiaris, I mean, this helm is pretty funny. So it's basically just giving people attack blessing anytime you heal them or anytime you cast any kind of single target skill on them. So in terms of her single target skills, you have you have heal, you have shield. I mean, technically attack blessing, but you can't attack blessing someone twice, so it doesn't count. So basically, it's heal and shield, right? It's really nice later on in the game when you bring something like if you bring her 3C and you bring like Miracle or Mass Heal, and then heal is her usual set now. So it's really nice that later on in the fight, if you need to get even more damage out of her, or the fight is dragging on longer than you would like, then you can use this to power up one of your units again, because the cooldown on her 3C is just way too long and she won't be doing much after that. So this helps a lot. If you play a tank push, of course, you can attack blessing somebody, and then you can use attack blessing on one guy and then just heal one other guy, and then you'll have 2 units with attack blessing, even without the use of your 3C. And obviously, like in a tank push situation, that's very powerful. Like attack blessing is still probably the single strongest single target boost in the game. I mean, I guess it's arguable whether this is better or Imelda's whip is better, but they keep giving Tiaris more ways to outshine a lot of the other single target boosters, and it seems they kept with that theme with this exclusive. So the only thing I would say is that I would say Tenyo's headdress is still like pretty strong competition for this helm, because anytime you're rushing, you're probably going to want the Tenyo's headdress and you want to pray for the movement boost. I think that's more valuable than being able to give some random attack blessings later on in the fight. Like I said, this is assuming you're a rush player, of course. But otherwise, like, yeah, it's a good exclusive. Like, it's kind of unsurprising, but I guess I don't know what else they could have really done with it. Okay, so in the patch where they added Adankelmo and Lightbringer, they actually added a new upgrade system that I've talked about briefly in the past. I guess I'll just save that until the end of this video to talk about it. So I'll first talk about the 4th anniversary characters that they added, which is Girl in the Shell and Sword of Light and Shadow. So Girl in the Shell, like, the moment I saw her kit, I was just like, this seems very underwhelming for a 4th anniversary character. So I don't think Girl in the Shell is bad, but she seems terribly simplistic, considering all the other mages that they've been adding, because every mage they've added up to this point had some kind of gimmick, right? So like Kaguya has her stupid DDR thing, and boosting enchantments. You have Ashimir or whatever. She has her dance moves, which is quite useful, and she can spam her 3C over and over. We just saw Adankelmo, who has her gate ability, which is very powerful. And now you have Girl in the Shell, who is another long-range mage. And during the anniversary show, they did in fact mention that Girl in the Shell is going to have a startup time, and we see that right here in her talent. So she needs to wait 2 turns before she gets up to speed with her unit range. So this is kind of similar to Light of Genesis, in that you kind of have to take a couple turns for her to charge up before she's at max range. However, she does not need to charge up for the damage increase. She already has a 30% damage increase, just like Lucretia. She does get some extra intelligence, so that's always nice. And real quick here, the bonds here are Julian and Ironblood Commander. I know not everybody pulled for Ironblood Commander, so that was one character that's missing if you want Girl in the Shell. And Julian, I know, is not going to be a very popular character to pull for, I think, for most people. So if you want Girl in the Shell, you might want to consider pulling for Julian. But it is the defense mod, so it's not as important, I would say. Okay, so I was mentioning a moment ago that all the long-range mages they've been adding to this point has some kind of gimmick. So Girl in the Shell's gimmick is essentially she has randomized skills and randomized upgrades. So before I get to our 3C, let's start with this 1C that she starts with. This skill is a selection skill of 3 skills. However, it comes from a pool of like 12 different skills or something, and they're randomized at the beginning of each turn. And this skill will just take on the cooldown of whatever you decide to choose, up to 3 cooldown. So you can actually cast something with like 5 cooldown and end up only having 3 cooldown for it, which is kind of nice. But it's still kind of weird, because I mean, it's a pool of both single target and AoEs as well as some support skills. So the problem I have with this is that it's like a lot of times you might not get what it is you're looking for. Now, because so many of these are single target and AoEs, you have and you get 3 of them each turn. There's a fair chance you're going to get at least 1 single target and AoE each turn. So it's not like you're going to run into a situation where it's like, oh, I really need to cast an AoE, but I didn't get one. Like, that's going to be pretty rare. However, I will say that these support skills, like mass attack, mass resist, and mass heal, like the odds of you getting them when you really need them are kind of low. I mean, it's nice to annoy the opponent when they think you don't have healing, and then all of a sudden you bust out the mass heal from Girl in the Shell, but it's just not something I think is worth relying on. Aside from that, it's just the standard, mage spells, Fireball, Lightning, Free Strike, Windblade. Holy Word is in here, which is also nice. You get the heal, cleanse. So you got Tornado, Blizzard, Thunderstorm, Meteor, Retribution, and Black Hole. So the only skill that is way past this 3 cooldown mark is the Black Hole skill. And Meteor, I guess. Meteor is also here. But yeah, I mean, it's a weird skill for sure. I mean, it does allow her to kind of compress a lot of skills onto only 3 slots. But this randomization, I don't know. Like, I just imagine a lot of situations where it's going to be you're going to come up with a set of skills that you didn't want, or you didn't get what you need, and you're probably going to be mad when that happens. However, like I said, because there are 6 single target skills here, 6 AoE skills here, and 3 support skills here. So you have a roughly I would say roughly about a 40% chance of getting a single target on each slot. But the numbers are not precise here, but you do get 3 rolls. So the odds of you getting a single target and at least 1 AoE, it's pretty good. So I would say Girl in the Shell is relatively reliable with this skill in terms of if you need her to just DPS. But if you're looking for her to be a spot healer, I really would not recommend that being your strategy. So aside from that, you have Dark Reaper, pretty standard nowadays. She also has Windblade if you just want to. I guess if you just want to cast Windblade over and over. Heaven Sanction, So, she does have, a fair number of skills. She has alternatives if you don't want to deal with this stupid randomization skill. So finally, you have our 3C here. So our 3C is pretty weird. It is just a single target skill. And when it first starts off, it is a very, very basic skill that does 1.3 times damage and has 0 cooldown. However, at the end of each turn, you get to upgrade it, or you get to choose to upgrade it once. So with this skill, you have to take 3 turns before she's ready. And sometimes you might want to take more than that, because if you're fishing for a specific upgrade, you might take longer than that. So let's take a look here real quick. So on the first and third upgrades, you will get to choose one of these 3. Well, you get 3 categories, and they are randomized as to what will be in each category. And you get to choose one of them. And then on the second upgrade, you will also get to choose from 3 categories, but they are locked in place as to what they are. So the second upgrade will always be fixed as to what you'll be getting. But the first and third upgrades, you will be randomized in a pool. So first you have the damage upgrade. So this one is you get to choose between different effectiveness. You get to choose against different class effectiveness. So you get Infantry and Lancer, Cavalry and Flyers, and Holy and Mage. And alternatively, if you don't want any effectiveness, you can do 1 times intelligence fixed damage before battle. The other one is the functional upgrade. So this one is like debuffs and stuff. So one of them is silence the enemy after using the skill. This one is get damage taken minus 20% before attacking. So this is nice if you're attacking into something that you think is going to hurt you. And this is another debuff before battle. It inflicts unbuffable for 2 turns, and this one can't be dispelled. What else is there? So the third one is the battery upgrade, and this one is kind of like healing associated. So this one first you can turn this into a Holy Word style skill, or I guess redemption rather. This is more like redemption. So you heal the other ally units for 1.5 times this unit's intelligence. This one basically turns it into like a Dark Reaper variant, where she heals herself based off the damage. And then the third one is actually it says after taking action, restore HP to units within 2 blocks of 1.5 times this unit's intelligence, remove 1 debuff. So this turns her into a kind of a more reliable healer of sorts. And remember, once you use this, this is going to be 1 cooldown. So even if you want to keep this at 1 cooldown, you only upgrade once. You're still gonna have 1 cooldown, so she can't be a consistent healer. You can't keep this at 0 cooldown and still get this effect. So anyway, out of these 3 upgrades, you get to choose 2 of them, right? 1 on the first upgrade and 1 on the third upgrade. And then the second upgrade, you get to choose 1 of these 3. So the damage upgrade for this one is basically the Lucretia 3C, where you do the stat drop. Very, very powerful effect. The functional upgrade is this skill has unit range +2, but damage dealt -10%. So, in addition to the 2 range you'll get from her talent, you can get another 2 range on this specific spell if you get this upgrade, which means that by the third turn, because you need to spend the second turn getting this, right? On her third turn, you are going to have a unit that has 6 range on her attack, which is quite good. That's obviously a really long range, and if you have a scepter on top of that, that's 7 range. So that's pretty crazy. The damage dealt minus kind of sucks, but I think that's a pretty good trade-off considering how powerful range can be. So battery upgrade, this one just makes it so that you hamstring all her healing effects by 30%, but you get cooldown -2 by casting this. So what you could do, what they decided to do here is, if you decide to get the battery upgrade for healing the units around yourself, or just healing people around yourself with the redemption style effect, and you get this battery upgrade, the second battery upgrade, and then you just leave it alone after that, you will have a 0 cooldown attack skill with 1.3 times damage, and you will be able to heal people around you every time you cast it. So in that sense, so if you get a healing upgrade from the first upgrade and this cooldown reduction upgrade for the second upgrade, and then just leave it alone after that, you can have a 0 cooldown attack and healing skill from Girl in the Shell. Now, of course, you do have some penalties here. You have the healing effects -30%, but that's not too bad, honestly. So here's the thing. So overall, what they were doing with Girl in the Shell is that she can be flexible as to what role she can be once you get her onto the field. You can decide what you want her to be. You can decide you want her to just do pure damage. You can decide to have her do really, really high range. You can decide to have her as this weird off healer. But she does have some wind up time. I think Girl in the Shell is good. Just all these long range mages in general have been good. And this flexibility is kind of interesting, but I think it really depends on what you want in your box, right? Because right now, I feel like as far as off healers go, we don't get that many anymore, right? Or at least most of the ones that we have aren't relevant anymore, because Chris obviously isn't relevant, Rachel isn't relevant, D-Lit kind of has a hard time making it into boxes anymore. So if you want to use Girl in the Shell as kind of this weird off healer, she actually does have that option, and you have the option to turn her into a full DPS if you really, really need it. So I think in that sense, that's the most interesting part of her, is that, because remember, each character only takes up 1 out of the 15 slots you have in your Apex box, and having a character that can be flexible like this is pretty interesting. So as far as her faction goes, Princess and Tensei, just like the original Lucretia, and they added Dark faction, which was one of the factions that people always wondered why Lucretia didn't have. Not much else to say. Pretty interesting, but I think she is kind of underwhelming. Not bad, just kind of it just seems kind of strange that this is their 4th anniversary character. Now I will say that the other 4th anniversary character, which is the new Zerada, Sword of Light and Shadow, now she is very much worth all the hype in the 4th anniversary, because this character seems really crazy to me. First you have protagonist, mythical, Tensei, protagonist and mythical I get. Protagonist is just okay, sure, I kind of get it. Because she's it's kind of she's supposed to be kind of a mirror of Wei Tam and Matthew of sorts. So I understand why she's also in protagonist. Now Tensei, like the only justification I could think of that is that she literally is a reincarnated character. So she's not from Langrisser Tensei. It's more just that she is literally a reincarnation of a character. So that's why she's in the Tensei faction. So okay, whatever. Okay. So they already revealed this talent during the anniversary show, but I might as well talk about it again. So first you have Ignore Class Disadvantage, which she has infantry and demon classes, so just like Epsilon or Listel, you would probably run her on demon, and she has crazy stats, and she has almost none of the downsides you typically get from running demons, so this is quite good. Damage up plus 30% in battle, so she does get a couple AoEs. So I guess they decided they just didn't want her to have good AoE damage, which is fair because her single target is kind of crazy, as you'll see in a second here. So at the start of the map, she will get this buff, Blade Spirit, attack plus 10%, movement plus 2, and she will revive with 50% HP and remove Blade Spirit when she gets fatal damage. And this revive can be refreshed. So when you kill an enemy, or when an enemy unit dies, you don't even have to kill them. They just have to die. So if someone is using like Akka, or someone is using any kind of sacrificial kind of character, it will create a tile effect where that unit was, and if Sword of Light and Shadow is standing within one ring of that terrain effect, and she has used up her Blade Spirit, she will replenish Blade Spirit. Now, the only real downside to this is that the revive effect will become weaker and weaker every time she uses it, but that's still kind of crazy. And the bonds are there's nothing, right? There's Matthew and Zeradite, almost everybody has those characters. So this is again one of those it's just like Weitam from last year, right? Weitam was the anniversary character last year. That was kind of a crazy addition, and this new Zerida is also a very crazy addition, and in fact she functions kind of similarly to Weitam as well, as you'll see in a second here. So first, you just have a bunch of single target skills. You have Sword Soul here just because of course she has Sword Soul. So you have this teleport skill, Blinking Sword. It is again one cost, just like the teleport skill that Weitam has. So you use this skill either on any of your allies or on a soul scrap, which is what was created when an enemy unit died. So she will transfer herself to the selected tile. She'll get immune to all debuffs. She'll get 20% attack, and then she'll move 3 blocks and attack. So just like Weitam, she doesn't need a faction buff. She can attack buff herself. And then you have this AoE as just one of the unique skills she has. I don't think you're going to use this super often. It's just, I guess, a nice option in case you really need her to AoE. It does cannot act again, but it is dispellable, so it's not some crazy AoE, right? But the real prize here, of course, is our 3C here. So first, this has a passive that just has you do the 1 ring AoE damage if you have her Blade Spirit buff up. That's just kind of nice. I don't think it's really that important. The 20% HP is nice though. This 3C is just another Sword Soul variant, basically 1.8 times damage, dispel 5 buffs, and inflict this unique debuff called Exhaust, which is basically a revive block, and it cannot be dispelled. So basically, what you have here is she's like if Rio could teleport like Weitam. That's basically what they've created here. A character that has a teleport and a Sword Soul style skill that can instantly gank a tank if they don't have Gospel, or they don't have if they don't have Rosen shields. So yeah, that's pretty scary. Obviously Lightbringer is going to be a big problem for her, because Lightbringer will ignore the buff dispel, and she will be able to maintain Gospel if she has Gospel on her. Otherwise you could dispel Gospel with this, right? But yeah, and on top of that, like this even attacks first if she has her Blade Spirit skill. So yeah, so like I said, it's like if you had Rio from the Samurai Warriors collab, except instead of having like terrible movement, he could teleport like Wei-Tam. I will say, as far as movement goes, she is stuck to a 3-move classes. You know, you have a 3-move demon class, and you have a 3-move infantry class, which can wear Apex boots, of course, and get 4-move, and you can get the +2 move from her talent. So she has 5 to 6 move as a base, which is, you know, I think that's pretty decent already, because remember, this teleport skill you can use on herself, right? So you can run, if you have Apex boots, you can run 6 blocks and then teleport and then move 3 and attack. So that's still 9 blocks. And even if, and I know most people will be running demons, so that's still an 8 block threat range. Like you can still move 5 and then use this on yourself, move 3 blocks and attack, which is actually, well, that's actually a 9 range strike because you move 8 and then attack from 1 range. So yeah, like I don't even know what to say here. It's like it is a very, very powerful character, and I think she is going to be like a centralizing force during the 5th year of the game. I don't think anybody, I mean, unless they just start going crazy with the new characters they add, she's probably going to occupy the same sort of niche, same sort of position that Wei-Tam did at the beginning of the 4th year of the game. And then some, because she can actually revive on top of that, because like Wei-Tam is annoying to kill. That's the thing, because of his 3C sword giving a bunch of damage resistance. But with her, you have a guarantee that she won't die at least once, unless you're getting countered by your own, like by their own Sword of Light and Shadow, obviously, or their own revive blocker. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. Nothing else to say here, I think. Okay, so we have I forgot to add the picture for it, but you have SB Matthew. So SB Matthew, I actually put a different entry for each of the classes because it's worth noting, because just like Matthew's other classes and his hero class, it actually varies a slight bit based off of there's a slight variation based off of which class tree you decided to use. So for okay, let's just take a look real quick. So like Archer Matthew and his SP class has 584 attack. Matthew in his Assassin class has 557 attack on his SP class. Cavalry Matthew has 579, and Flyer Matthew has 572. So I guess to beat a dead horse, Assassin Matthew is still absolute garbage. There's like no reason whatsoever to be using Assassin Matthew. Like it has consistently been the worst version of Matthew, and they did not change that with this because he still has like a full 20 points less attack than the other ones. Yeah, there's just like nothing that the Assassin class provides other than like ninjutsu. Like ninjutsu is kind of useful, but his SP class is a 3-move infantry class, so the ninjutsu once again is like who cares. Now I think as far as which Matthew you want to stick to, it's the same as always. Archer Matthew is like probably the best for PvE purposes, just because like he's good for killing like the Phoenix and H&M. And now you have the fact that the SP Matthew from the Archer class actually has the highest attack. That's kind of nice, but it's not worth the trade-off because the unique skills that you get from his Ranger class are like roundabout. And was it deadly? I don't know if this is actually inaccurate or not. I think it might have been deathmatch instead of deadly. I'm gonna go and check later. But the point is that the passives that he gets out of the Archer class are pretty bad. So I really wouldn't recommend Archer Matthew if you are planning on using Matthew like in a PvE setting, or PvP setting rather. PvE setting, like obviously Archer Matthew is still nice for Hugin and Munin, so nothing to say there. I would say like, as it's always been, Cavalry and Flyer are going to be the toss-up as to which Matthew you want. Cavalry Matthew is the most powerful for just his own performance, because you have Strike, which of course greatly increases his attack range. Move Again is always like a very, very good passive to have. And you have, and most importantly, like you have Shadow Raid. So you can run them with like what is it, like the goblins. You can run them with firebrands. What else did he have? Well, he has shinobis. Okay, so that's it. You have shinobis, firebrands, and the goblins, and you can use that to shadow raid with him. And because of his talent, the way his talent is now, you don't have to worry about running out of the range of your allies anymore, because now it's his talent just gives him attack and defense based on how many units there are on the map. So this is basically 25% attack and defense if you have 5 allies. So this is this is straight up just a weaker version of Wataru's stat boost, and I really feel the need to point this out. Like, Rio has 25% attack and defense just for standing there and doing nothing, and Lewin has like 30% attack and defense for standing there and doing nothing. So it kind of sucks that Matthew can't get this unless you still have 5 guys around on the map. The second part of his talent is this weird, like, return to the past skill. Now, I still am not entirely sure what this does. So, I'll report back once it's actually out and people have been able to test out with it a bit. But what it sounds like is that you just revert back to whatever status you were before you attacked. And that actually doesn't work well with the strike skill on his cavalry class, because, that means that you will only teleport back 3 blocks. For whatever that's worth. He also has skill cost limit ignoring, but that's nice to have, but his 3C was always kind of crappy. So it's a nice bonus, because sometimes his 3C is nice to have, if only to increase, get a little bit of extra reach on his sword dance. That's pretty much the main function of it. But aside from that, the ignore cost limit is just whatever. I didn't mention Flyer a moment ago, but the main function of Flyer, of course, is to get Sprint, which is for team support. So Flyer Matthew has the best team support in Sprint. Cav Matthew has the best selfish boost. He has Strike and Shadow Raid. Archer Matthew is you use him to fight Huggin and Muggin. And then Assassin Matthew is just a piece of crap. For his SP skills, you have this passive, which gives him 8% attack when there are allies within 2 blocks, and then he restores 20% of damage dealt as HP after battle. So it kind of turns him into Elwyn Light of sorts, like the non-SP Elwyn, where you restore a bit of HP after attacking. Or Lewin, rather. It's more like Lewin, I guess. Non-SP Lewin. Now, this is really nice in PvE setting, I feel like. It's giving him some sustainability is always nice. And it might be okay in PvP sometimes if you want him to restore HP after attacking a tank or something, just to keep him safe. But aside from that, this attack plus 8%, I'm gonna assume that this is not a command effect, because it would really suck if it was, because otherwise you could just bring attack command and get to 10% attack. Okay, so this passive is kind of a waste. It's nice for PvE. I think mostly that's its main function. So his 2C is also whatever. It's it's an AoE skill. It has 2 range. It's a 2 range teleport that then does a 2 span AoE. So it's like a really crappy Eclipse, essentially. He teleports 2 blocks, does 0.33 AoE damage, reduces attack intelligence by 10%, which is come on, Zalone, really? If you're gonna give him a debuff, at least, why couldn't you have guys have at least made this minus 20%? You guys do know that Tornado exists, right? I don't understand why they made it so that he does this dinky 10% attack debuff. But whatever, it also does unbuffable last 2 turns. Also dispels 2 buffs. So dispelling buffs, also really nice. Increased damage against adjacent enemies. So, it's an okay AoE. And the Dispel 2 buffs is nice, but I really would have preferred this to have been a heal block. If this was heal block, this would have been way better. But as it is, it's just kind of whatever. Uh, Now I will say that you can, like, on the flyer, Matthew, you can run this skill, and then you can run like Wind Whisper and Sword Dance or something. Or even on like Cav, Matthew, you could just run this skill plus Sword Dance plus the 3C, which is a nice combination of AoEs for him to have. So he can consistently put out AoEs at least. But otherwise, like, this is kind of a crappy AoE, I gotta be honest. And that's really the letdown with SB Matthew, right? Like, these two skills are just so underwhelming. It's like they didn't really do. It's like they almost added nothing with him at all, because most of the time, even if I get SB Matthew, I'm still gonna be running him with his base kit skills. I'm still gonna be running his faction buff, because I mean that's really the only reason you would be running Matthew in the first place. I'm probably gonna be running Sprint or Strike, depending on which one he's in, which class tree you used. And then you're gonna run either like Sword Dance, his 3C, or Air Slash based on like what it is you need, right? And occasionally you're gonna be able to drop like, Sprint for something else, for like an extra attack skill. But basically, Matthew's build has not changed at all with this SP class. He got a bunch of extra stats. It is like a fair increase in his stats all around. He got a better soldier boost, 40% attack and 20% HP. And now he can run his 3C without as much penalty. And he doesn't need to stand next to people anymore, right? Like, that's the real bonus, I would say, in this, is that he has higher stats and he doesn't need to stand next to allies anymore to get his talent to work. But this talent actually gets, like, it has the same problem as Wataru, which is like, if your allies start dying, this ends up becoming a weaker talent. It actually ends up being significantly weaker than his non-SP talent by the end of it. So, like I said, SB Matthew, it's kind of a letdown. It's not like terrible or anything. It's just that you're pretty much only getting it for an all-around stat boost and a slightly better talent. I mean, it does depend on like what exactly this Return to the Past skill does, but overall it's just like kind of a letdown. And the fact that he's locked to infantry class on a 3-move class. Like, there's nothing special about this class. It's 3-move, it's infantry movement, and it's infantry class, which is also a downside because you're going to get killed by cavalry. As opposed to his flyer and cav classes before this, which were 5-move classes. Now you can of course use Apex boost to make up for it, but that kind of wastes like the defense plus 25% of his talent. Like, I don't know if I don't think you can actually build him to be tanky enough to like survive most hits, even with the 25% defense. That's not quite enough these days. So yeah, SP Matthew, I gotta say, like, kind of a letdown. I didn't expect him to go crazy with Matthew just because he's a free unit, right? But still, like, these two skills being as underwhelming as they are is just like what? Especially considering how the SP class for Matthew, you have to get him via the Hopes and Dreams wish summon, which is like the lottery where you pay crystals. So he's not even like SP Grenier where you get his Heart of Desire for free. You have to pay crystals to get his Heart of Desire. So like, it costs crystals to get him, and yet he's still not that impressive. I mean, you compare him to some of the other SR SPs like Hein, or especially Lewin, right? Lewin especially was like quite impressive. Hein was good for a while. Freya was okay. Like, Freya has kind of fallen behind again, but yeah, this is. I kind of wish they did more than they did. Protagonist players are still going to be forced to use Matthew, so it's an upgrade nonetheless. But that kind of sucks. Okay, so next we have the exclusive for that they added in the 4th anniversary patch, which is Archon of the Moon and Kaguya. So Archon of the Moon, okay, so it is a helm. You get you don't lose buff duration when you act again, and he restores HP when he ends turn on water. So it's just like, it's a couple nice bonuses, but like, I really do not understand this. Like, it seems very underwhelming. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't use Archon of the Moon, so I don't really know what else they could have really done for him. But I think a bit of extra movement might have been very helpful. This HP restoration is nice for when you activate his revive and you want to heal back up a bit. But aside from that, it's just like this is kind of an underwhelming exclusive. Yeah, not much to say there. So Kaguya, so I'm gonna need to test this later to see what exactly it does. But this 2 random cards at the start of the map does help a lot with getting her started, because sometimes you get like one very annoying thing about Kaguya is that sometimes you get it spawns like a bunch of cards that you don't need, and starting with 2 random of like these 3 cards will help out with that a lot. It really lowers the odds that you will be stuck not being able to use a skill on the first turn. So this second part of the equipment is what I'm not entirely sure is about, because it says that you cannot dispel the unit range +2 from her sleeved card skill, which if you'll recall, anytime she uses one of her sleeved card variants, she will also get range +2 for 1 turn. But if you'll remember, she actually acts again immediately after that, so she uses it up immediately. So I am not entirely sure what this particular line means. If it just means that you can't dispel this 1-turn debuff or buff, it's like, okay, I don't know what the point of that is, other than maybe like if you're standing on terrain that removes buffs, or you run into a Tenyo's robe that dispels your range while you're attacking. Like, yeah, that's nice, but that seems like that seems like such a limited thing to add onto an exclusive. Now, on the other hand, if this makes it so that this unit range lasts forever, then that will be very powerful. And it will really help with Kaguya like being consistently useful, because some turns you're just like you might just not have the cards you want to go, and then you won't have the increased range, and that really sucks. You won't be able to take pot shots with her. So this is gonna need some testing. So before I figure out what it does, but this is like a big question mark as to how good this exclusive is. I mean, it's probably you're going to be using this either way, just because of this. Like the random cards is really important, probably more important than Tenyo's Headdress. And then finally, you just have like a crit rate bonus, which is just like it's like whatever. Like that's just a nice bonus. Not much to say there. Okay, so with the 4th anniversary patch, they of course started adding new troops again. So they talked about the Gallant Duelist during the anniversary patch or anniversary show. So just to recap, you get attack and critical hit rate while attacking, and you have a 60% chance to reduce physical damage taken when you are attacked. Most notably is that very unique to this infantry soldier is that it has 4 move. So this is interesting for a couple of units. Brenda, I believe, didn't have a lot of infantry choices before, so it's quite nice for her. Elwyn, like this is obviously very, very nice for Elwyn. Elwyn, before he had to be locked to 3 move if you decide to run infantry soldiers on him, so now you get to have 4 move, and they're pretty strong as well, so definitely nice to have. Korvarakir has a Lamford, like whatever. It's like they're just like handing these out to random characters. Obviously these are all infantry characters, and it's a nice option. But they already like all 3 of these characters already had really powerful infantries to choose from, I think. So it's not that huge of a boost. Leon. So for Leon, it is a nice option because I think the only infantry, I believe the only infantry option he had before was like Berserker or something. So Gallant Duelist is nice because it's 4 move, and it's an infantry choice, but it's not as useful on Leon as it is for Elwyn, because for Elwyn, his attack skills like Sword Soul, Frontal Assault, and his 3C, they are all very slow attacks, so they allow the infantry troops to run ahead and attack first before he blasts them with Sword Soul. So that's very useful when you want to use Elwyn to like kill a Christiane or something, because Christiane, you'll have the infantry troops will run ahead and blow up her phalanx, and then Elwyn himself will come in with the sword soul afterwards to kill Christiane. With Leon, if you use infantry troops with him, he's just gonna charge in front of him and get himself killed, and it's not really gonna help with like Lancer troops as much, because the attack order is kind of whack, so it doesn't help as much. Parn, it's like whatever, like he has infantry class and you can use it with him. Sakura, like it's okay for Sakura because, but it doesn't have enemy phase output, so it's like I don't think it's as useful as the Sansi mercenaries. Sword of Light and Shadow is just like it was kind of like built for her, I guess, because she doesn't have a ton of other infantry choices. Yulia, it's okay, but she has mass maids, and mass maids are good enough, I feel like. Now, Wataru is probably the infantry unit that gets the most use out of these, because Wataru has base 4 move on his robot class, and one of the biggest downsides to switching to infantry soldiers on him was always that you would be stuck on 3 move, but now you have a 4 move option as far as soldiers go, so that is very, very useful for Wataru. So I would say, like, out of these units, the units you would probably want to build these the most for are Wataru, Elwyn, and Sword of Light and Shadow. The rest of them is more just like a nice bonus to have. So the second soldiers they added here is the Wing Warlock. So you can see it uses chain and sprays. So for the most part, you can see that the units that they added the Batwing Warlock to are the people who didn't get the fairies. And these are, of course, like also they are another attacking mage troop that have 5 move and are flying. So just like fairies, they are an alternative to sorceress if you don't want the strict HP requirement and you don't need the defensive bonus from the magic defense. And these also do 1 debuff before battle, which is kind of nice, I guess. It also means that you activate a number of like techs because you're dealing a debuff before battle. So you also activate things like the one I forgot the name of the staff, like Astaroth or whatever, that gives you intelligence based on enemies that have debuffs. So like I mentioned a second ago, pretty much all of these guys do not have fairies. Altina, Bolzol, Egbert, Phrygia, Gustav, Cortez, Patsir, Ren, Saintess, Transcender. Every single one of these characters didn't get the fairies. So the only character here that got fairies, I believe, was Lana. And I guess Lana just gets to have everything because she is the original mage in this game. And of course it synergizes quite well with Bolzol and Cortez because they do a lot of debuffs. Phrygia, it's nice to have an option that's not like that's not sorceress. Patsir, same thing. Nice to have another option without needing to stay 100% life all the time. And I think the one that rejoices the most is actually Ainz, because Ainz didn't have a good mage troop before this. Before this, Ainz was like stuck with wizards, I believe. Like he had, let's see here, he had wizards, and that's actually all he had. He didn't get fairies, he didn't get sorceresses, and he finally. For those of you guys like that are still using Ainz, at least for like PvE stuff or whatever, if you like using Ainz, at least he got thrown a bone here. This is a very powerful troop for him, very, very nice to have. So yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this troop other than that. It's just another alternative to sorceress, right? Which is always nice to have because they're sorceress was like the queen rather mage troop for like the first 4 years of the game. So it's nice that they added the fairies and now they've added the Batwing Warlocks. So, yep, that is all for the new troops. Okay, so I'm going to finish this off by talking about the new inscription upgrade system that they added in the Lightbringer patch. Now here's a picture of it. You've probably already seen this floating around. So as you can see, it's just like another upgrade system that gives you more hero stats. It is an extra page that's like a second page to the equipment page in your heroes. However, it is not like it is not like actually associated with things you have equipped, so you don't have to like inscript specific pieces of equipment or anything. It's actually tied to the hero, so it's more like equipment mastery than anything else. However, one thing that is not like equipment mastery is that it is not randomized. There's no RNG involved, so you can rejoice that this is not like an enchant system. It's just like a straight upgrade system. You just need to click a button a bunch of times and get a bunch of stats. There is, however, a lot of farming involved. There's going to be a new mode where you just like, it's just like a pretty standard PvE mode. There's really not a whole lot to it. You are only limited to, you're only allowed to farm it 99 times per week. So it's clear that they're just like bottlenecking people into like not being able to upgrade very quickly. So the big choice here is going to be which heroes do you want to upgrade first. That's really the big choice. And as you can see, like here's a maxed out Gintoki, and he has plus 75 attack, plus 45 on his defenses, plus 15 intelligence, plus 10 skill, and he has 500 HP. So just like with most other like new hero stats, this typically makes the game bulkier overall, because typically you get like only one offense stat, whereas you get 2 different defensive stats, which is HP and a defense. Not a whole lot else to say about this other than that. It's just like, it's a lot of grinding. That's really all there is to it. Hopefully you guys have a lot of sweep tickets saved up, because I found myself using the sweep tickets a lot for this, because it's not a hard mode. It's just very tedious, and you're only allowed a certain number of farming every week. So it's more like Aniki farming than anything else. It's really up to you whether or not you want to just like leave it there and just like auto it. But sometimes you're lazy and you just want to sweep it and get it over with. Now, in addition, you can see that there's like a center node here. Now, this is basically like a new character-specific upgrade. So they call them Inscription skills. Now, these aren't particularly strong from the ones they've released so far, and you can see them listed here. The Almeida and Rachel ones were released first, and then in the 4th anniversary patch, they released 4 new ones. Pretty much all of them have been passive boosts, and as you can see, like I would say like half of them are okay, and half of them are just like not that useful at all. And there's one of them that is just really good. So you have Almeida, who gets intelligence plus 5%, and then she gets a cooldown reduction on ultimate equip and roast. It's just like whatever, like that's nice, but it's not really gonna help her that much. Rachel, intelligence plus 10%, which is the best part of it, honestly, because the other part of it is just like it gives stacks of her 3C onto stuff she attacks, which is like, who cares? The Landius one is the one that's the most overpowered, because of course. So Landius gets a passive block immunity, which, that's like, I don't think I really need to explain like how good that is. Like, not only does it make it so that his revive is super reliable now, but it's also the fact that, you can't disable his passive guard, which is quite good. There's just a number of other things that he's like, other passives, like his aura can't be disabled either from the passive block if you don't have guard up and you don't have increased aura range up. Like the passive block, I believe, also prevents the aura from being blocked. He also gets a defense bonus, which is just like a cherry on top. Like the passive block is really that's really the strongest part of it, right? And Brenda gets 5% attack and then 100% critical hit rate whenever she acts again from her talent. That's okay. Like it's not anything crazy. It's just a nice bonus. The Gerald and Layla one, on paper or like in a vacuum, it's actually a pretty strong boost. You get skill damage plus 10% and transform duration plus 1. On a lot of other characters, this would be really strong, but it's like Gerald and Layla is so far behind that it's like, it's nice to have, but it's really not going to save them. Gerald and Layla are pretty much like, they're banished to PvE pretty much permanently now. Now they are very good in PvE, but they didn't really need this boost to make them better in PvE, honestly. And honestly, even in PvE, like you don't use the transform that often. Like a lot of times you just use them as like an off healer, and you don't need the 3C for that. The Egbert one is okay. 5% intelligence, and then like you have a 50% chance of doing another instance of fixed damage. Egbert is really nice for newer players or like lower powered players who want to be able to kill some of the like the Forbidden Battleground maps or like higher level maps like that, because fixed damage tends to be very good when your stats aren't so impressive. It's nice, but again, it's really not going to save him. So like I said, out of all of these inscription skills, the Landius one is really the only game changer, I would say. You kind of wish that they did that for the other characters, because honestly, out of these characters, Landius is the one that needed the least help. Not to say that like I don't appreciate the Landius boost, because like he was falling behind other tanks, but he was permanently relevant thanks to his legend buff. So the fact that he got the best inscription skill on top of that is just like, come on, Zalone, help these other guys out a bit. So the very last thing I want to talk about here is that there is a new covenant being added in the 4th anniversary called Frigg. No, not the Frigg that we already have. It is another god that is actually called Frigg on the Chinese server, because originally the Frigg we have on the global server was called Freya on the Chinese server, and I guess they didn't want people to confuse Freya with Freya, so they renamed her Frigg. So now we have another Frigg. So I don't know what the global translators are going to do when they get Frigg over here. Are they just going to call her Frigg again? Like, I'm pretty sure there's somebody on the Chinese team who's just screwing around with like the translator who's just like, hey, let's see what you do with this one. But anyway, I don't have much written down here other than these hero boosts that Frigg provides, which, as you can see, is basically like a magic defense version of Heimdall. Tons and tons of magic defense, pretty good HP, and then low everything else, like okay intelligence, I guess. But yeah, like this is basically just for magic tanking. So it's a niche that didn't exist with the Covenants yet. As far as Frigg herself goes, her on field effects are like Actagens. So she gets like intelligence boosts from Actagens, and then like she has a skill that acts against 2 units at the same time. So they already have a lot of really strong Covenants, and like Frigg seems to also be a really strong one. Like being able to act against 2 units and then attacking based off of how many times you act again. Obviously, that's quite strong. So, but all the Covenants are strong in PvE, I would say, except for like maybe like Heimdall. So there's not a whole lot to say here. Just another Covenant. And that's all I got for you guys today. Once again, it's a really long video, but in my defense this time I was talking about 2 different patches at the same time. So let me know what you guys think below of these 2 patches that just came out on the Chinese server, and I'll see you guys around.